Okay, so we are recording. So just be aware of that if you're talking. I think it records what the person that is talking for the finished one. Okay. Right. Can you all see the whole screen here? Or are my things that are overlapping, or are those visible? I can't really tell. Okay, great. I'm getting a thumbs up. Okay.
All good.
All good. So today's lesson is costings. I don't know. Is it really? This is the starting point. Sorry. This is the starting point for so many things happening right now. This is the starting point for everything. Okay, so a lot of times, and especially on that group, I see it all the time. I mostly just been ignoring it lately on the WhatsApp group. People saying, what should I charge for this? Or how much do you charge for this? I see it all the time. And I know it's the reason that people are doing that is because they want that kind of reinforcement to say, yes, you must charge this much for it. But it doesn't really work like that. And that's why I specifically always come back to this lesson. How do we work out the costings? So before you start anything else, you need to know what it costs you to make the recipe. And what it costs you will not necessarily be the same as what it costs me. So that's the reason that I avoid that question all the time. I should just get in there and have a discussion about it. But because it's different. So I might buy my things in bulk, and therefore it's going to cost me cheaper per kilogram to buy my flour, or you know, maybe I am only using free range eggs, which are like probably double the price of a normal egg. I don't actually know exactly, but it's quite a bit more. I'm using butter, or I'm using margarine. Those two things are going to take the cost in two very different directions. So I can't tell you what to charge for your cakes. Nobody can, which is why you need to do your costings before you do anything else. Okay. Right. So to calculate the cost, wait, now I've got to move everything because it's all on the other side now. Sorry. Oh, somebody's in the waiting room. Hang on. Admit. There we go. Okay. Right. Hello, if you're just joining. Hopefully you can hear us. We've just gotten going. So we're just talking about how to calculate the cost of the ingredients for a recipe. Right. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is keep all your slips so that you know what everything's costing you. Then you need to work out the cost for each recipe. So let's say your recipe is, I don't know, 100 grams of flour, 200 grams of whatever. You're going to work out for each thing. I'm going to show you a little example of that now. And you also want to calculate the serving size. So, okay, it's very well to say this recipe costs 100 Rand, but how many servings are you going to get out of it? What size cake is that? And it's maybe more relevant when you're doing something like biscuits. So you say, okay, the whole recipe costs me 100 Rand to make, but I'm going to get 10 biscuits out of it. So each biscuit is going to cost me 10 Rand. Okay. Then shop around. So shopping around will help you look for better prices. In the past, I have in this handy little book of mine, my handy dandy book. I don't know if you can see it. That's a shopping list. I have, when I've gone to the different shops, I will write and make a little page with like the cost of the regular things that I buy. So let's say sugar and icing sugar and butter and whatever. Most of the time now, because I've been doing it for a long time, I know where the cheaper places are, or I see a good bargain and I get it. But it is very easy. Sometimes there's a big discrepancy. So for instance, sugar, I buy it from the supermarket because usually it's on a special and I can get that 2.5 kilogram bag for like 35 Rand or something. But if I buy the equivalent size at one of the baking shops, it's like 45 Rand. So it's a big difference. It's very seldom that I can't get it cheaper at the supermarket. Whereas icing sugar, because I'm buying these enormous quantities, I'm buying like 15 kilos at a time, I will never get that cheaper at the supermarket. It's always going to be more expensive. They just don't sell it in the quantity I want. So those are things that you need to take into account before you start working out your costings. Also, I wouldn't recommend using the sale price. So if you get your butter on a special and it normally costs you 50 Rand a block, okay, that is probably more like the special price, but you know what I mean. And now you get it for 30 Rand. Don't work out your costing based on the sale price, because then there's no guarantee you'll always get it at the cheaper price. So work it out at the more expensive price, the usual price that you get it, and then from there you can, you know, work it out from there. Okay, everyone good? I'm going to move on. I say that like I know how to do that. Oh wait, there we go. Right, okay. So here is an example of how to work out that food cost. Okay, and this is a very dry topic, I'm afraid. I should have prepared some jokes or something, but I didn't. So we'll just have to battle through. Right, so I've made a little table here, and I actually have various different tables on this subject in various notes and things that I have made over the years. So if you need more help with this, please just shout. I can send you the little, like a little table that I use. There's lots of ways to work this out. Okay, so column A is the cost of the ingredients for a recipe. Column B is the quantity that you bought it in. And column C is working out how much you're going to use for this recipe. So in this example, the recipe has 240 grams of butter. A 500 gram thing of butter is going to cost me, yes, I will happily share the slides afterwards. I'm actually also making a recording, so I can, you can also look at that. I just have to figure out how to share the slides, but yes, absolutely. So in this example, let me just move this thing out of the way. Okay. In this example, for 240 grams of butter, if 500 grams costs you 72 Rand, you take 72 Rand, you divide it by 500 to get a price per gram, and then you times it by how much the recipe has, which is 240 grams, and that gives you 34 Rand and 56 cents. Okay. For the eggs, this recipe, this imaginary recipe, it's a very strange recipe. It just has butter, eggs, and salt in it. I don't know what on earth we could ever be making with that, but let's just pretend. Our 3 eggs. So for 60 Rand, we get 30 eggs. These are presumably not free-range eggs. So 60 Rand divided by the 30 eggs gives you the price per egg, times by 3 because the recipe has 3 eggs, and that gives you 6 Rand. And then the reason I added the salt in here, which is like quite random, I'm just going to move my things around again here. I shouldn't have made it all over the screen. Okay. So the salt is just really as an example, because if you have something like salt, you still have to buy salt and have salt in your kitchen, and most recipes will have salt in them. But salt's quite cheap and you're using a very small quantity. So in this example, it has 5 grams of salt. I just guessed that a kilogram bag of salt costs you 15 Rand. I don't actually know how much it costs. I was just guessing. So here is the first thing. Okay, so you buy it in a kilogram. So you've got to change your kilograms into grams before you do this. So you've got to say 1,000 grams is equal to 1 kilogram. Okay, so your 15 Rand is divided by 1,000, and that's because the recipe is in grams. So you've got to always compare apples with apples. I've got a whole other apple slide coming up in a minute. And then times by 5 for the 5 grams. And the total there is 0.075. So it's not even a cent. No, sorry, it is 7 cents. Oh, I'm such an idiot. It's 8 cents. I need to update the slide. But okay. 1 minute, just ignore me. I thought it was less than 1 cent. It's not. Okay. And then here I have totaled the whole recipe. So I've put my 34 Rand and 56 cents, my 6 Rand for the eggs, and which should actually be 8 cents if you're going to round up. And you get a total for the recipe. Okay. So every single recipe you make, you want to do that with it. Please do this before you ask me how much to charge for your cake, because I'm not going to answer you until you can tell me what your costing says. Okay. Right. Then here's my apples with apples. You can see my apples over there. So the first thing you need to do is convert kilograms to grams, liters to milliliters, etc. Okay, so if you buy your oil in a 2-liter container and the recipe calls for 150 milliliters, it's quite easy. There's 1,000 milliliters in a liter. There's 1,000 grams in a kilogram, all of those are quite simple to work out. And you can just type it, if you just type it into Google and you just say how many milliliters in a liter or whatever, it will convert for you. So if you're struggling, just go to Google and just type it in there. The problem comes when it's something like I buy my flour in kilograms, but my recipe is in cups. Okay, so we know 1 cup is 250 milliliters, but that doesn't, a milliliter and a gram are not the same thing. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. You can't say 250 milliliters of flour is equal to 250 grams of flour. It's not equal. And it's different for every type of ingredient. So flour and sugar and all of them are different. And it's because they have different densities. So I would just go online and there are different conversion tables for this. Again, if you can, let me just, how do I get out of here? Sorry. No, I don't want to do that. I want to get out of here. Okay, there we go. So if I just went into Google here, just open a new window. Go away. Okay, I don't know how to make it. Open a new window. Okay. This little thing keeps popping down and it's like, oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, so if you just wanted to type in here 250 milliliters of flour in grams, and it will tell you, there it is, it gives you a little chart. Okay, so you don't even have to, there's, you know, this comes from somewhere, this says comes from some website called howmany.wiki. There's lots of these things. So 250 milliliters is equal to 132 grams. I would not use this as a recipe conversion. I would just be using these tables for my costing. I wouldn't do this to work out how much is going to go in the recipe. I would just do it for this. Let's go back here. Okay, present. There we go. Okay, so we're back to our apples. So whenever you do that costing that we worked out here, make sure that whatever is in this column is the same as what's in this column. So if it's grams and grams, or if it's eggs and eggs, or if it's kilograms and grams, you should change to grams and grams, etc., etc. I think everyone probably can understand that. I'm assuming. Okay. And then, so this is just, this is actually link. Oh, it does link. Amazing. Okay, so this links to a little tool that I have made. Let's just go back here, sorry. It's like a little costing tool, which I'm going to tell you about later, but I'll come back to it. It's not, it helps you to work out your costings. Okay, right, so now we know what our cost of our ingredients is. Now we need to work out what are we going to sell this product for. So in a restaurant or that kind of thing, they would tell you that you would take your food cost and times it by 3 to get your selling price. So for instance, if the cost of the ingredients is 100 Rand, you're going to sell it for 300 Rand. The thinking here is that 1/3 is your food cost, 1/3 is your overheads, and 1/3 is your profit or labor, however you want to think about it. So your I just want to move this again, sorry. Not really, this is not my best thing. Okay, so overheads are things like electricity, consumables, which would be things like dishwashing liquid, tin foil, mobile data, all the things that you need to buy to make your business go, but not necessarily that are ingredients. Technically, boards and boxes will also be under overheads. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. And then obviously your profit or your labor that's your share. That's what you're going to make on the deal. So if you think about your cake that's costing 300 Rand, you personally will make 100 Rand on that. Okay. Right. Okay. So then that's great. That all works fantastically if the cake is not very complex to make. If it's a pretty simple like cake with minimal decorations, that's great. You can just times it by 3 and done. The problem is that when it comes to decorating your cakes, there's a lot of additional frou-frou that goes into it. Okay, so let's say you are making a sugar rose, for whatever. The cost for that is minimal. It doesn't really cost you anything except time to make it. You know, the ingredients are very, very low cost. So for that, you would need to add that on over and above, because you need to account for the amount of time, that additional time, and the skills that you have to make it. Not everyone has those skills. So for those sort of things, I would say you want to make a per hour rate. So you're going to say, okay, it's going to cost me 100 Rand, I mean, an hour to make it, I'll charge 100 Rand an hour, and that's how I'll work it out. Or you can look and see what other people are charging. So if you go to the shop, the baking shop, and they're charging 100 Rand for 5 roses, then you charge the same. You're going to make it, but you're just making it the same as what someone else is charging. The other things that I consider add-ons, fresh flowers. So I don't times those by 3. That would make it completely impossible for anyone to have fresh flowers. But I do mark it up, and I don't count it as an ingredient or as an overhead. Boards and boxes. So every cake you make will have a board and be in a box, basically. And for those, I would include that as a separate cost. I don't tell the customer about it, but I just, when I'm working out my costing, I add it on. The reason for that is that sometimes, especially let's say you have a big novelty cake or something, it's on a big flat wide board. The board could be like 50 Rand. But if you're only charging 500 Rand for the cake, that's a big portion of your overheads. I just don't feel like you can expect that to be included in that 1/3 overheads. I think that would skew it a bit. So boards and boxes, I just add on separately. Delivery, I add as a separate cost to the customer. So I say, if you want delivery, this is how much it is when I give them their quote. And also things like the same with stand rental. So some people will rent a cake stand or whatever. Then I would charge a deposit and a cost that I would, you know, add on separately, so they can decide if they want to have that, like optional extra things. And actually the flowers is a bit the same. So if I'm doing wedding cakes, I would say, well, if you want your florist who's doing the other flowers to supply the flowers, I'll put them on when I get there. Then you don't have, I'm not involved in the cost of that. I just put them on. And you can maybe charge like a setup cost or something. See, I don't want that. Okay, right. So it said I should have a discussion at this point. Let's discuss. Okay, so ways to market yourself. The best, most, for me, the best is word of mouth. This is where I get the bulk of my really good, loyal customers. So I always tell people to tell other people that I am available, you know, that if I'm looking for work and stuff. So if I've made a cake for a friend or family or something, or actually any cake these days, I just leave my card there in case anyone who's at the party says, oh gosh, who made this cake? It's lovely, you know. Because there's nothing better than someone tasting your cake and then wanting to use you, because obviously making a good looking cake is important, but making a good tasting cake is also really important. So, you know, people can look at pictures of what you've made and get an idea of what the look of your cake is, but the best way for them to taste your cake is obviously if they've had your cake. So, and also ask people that you know to tell people they know. So I once read this thing that said, if you counted up all your acquaintances, just people that you meet and know by name, but maybe not best friends, it would be at least 200 people. So if you think about all of those people ordering their wedding cakes and their birthday cakes and their party cakes and their fancies and whatever from you, that's already like, you know, 200 orders potentially. Obviously, then there's social media. So I think it's really quite important to have some kind of social media presence, or a Facebook page or an Instagram page or something for your business where you can put pictures of your cakes so people can come and look and see what you've done. Even if you're not using it specifically to advertise, just having that as a place that people can look at what you've made and say, oh yes, I like this style, or I can see she's really good at this, or whatever it is quite useful. Because I think in this day and age, people, before they order anything, they're gonna like internet stalk you a bit. Well, I mean, I would, you know, just look online and see and compare and look at, somebody says to me, look at the the reviews. I don't know. I was quite surprised to know I had reviews. Also local groups. So I'm in like a Harfield, I'm in like a Harfield village group. That's my local area. There's always people on there like, can anyone make a cake for me for tomorrow? You know, and then if I'm available, I just be like, yes, hello, I can help you or whatever. And then I also see there's a few other bakers in the group. I see other people saying, you know, I had a cake from so-and-so and it's great, or, you know, so it's quite nice. And then you are also just dealing with your local customers, because having customers that are far away is a bit more problematic. They have to then come and fetch from you. Sorry, or you have to deliver. So you definitely want customers in your local area. And then this was, I don't know if anyone watched that video that I sent around the other day when we were talking about having this meeting, about creating value. So having a special offer. Somebody else also on the group, somebody posted a thing, I can't remember what it said, but it was all about, I don't know, I'll find it just now. It was all about offering, I see nodding. It was the thing about offering, like including delivery in the charge and offering a special where you also get biscuits. I can't remember what it was, but something like that. So having those kind of special offers obviously encourages customers to purchase. And in that thing, it was a thing about making it seem, creating scarcity by saying, well, yes, I have a special offer, but it's only on for this week. You know, if you want to book, you should let me know. Those are all great selling techniques, and there are a lot of ways to sell yourself. I'm just too honest. I can't, I just can't do that really very well. But something I do love to do is upselling. Okay, so that means that's sort of similar to what the other thing was. So they phone you up and they say, hi, I'm looking for a cake for my kid's birthday, and you give them a quote, and then before they even get back to you, you say, and also, I don't know if you are interested, but I also do cookies and cupcakes and balloons and jumping castles or whatever it is. So that they know that you have other services and that they can get everything in the one-stop shopping. So instead of now just making one cake for this customer, you're now upselling yourself. You're selling a whole bunch of other things to them as well. And then, so I went online when I was making this slide, and I was like, well, how do you create value? I just stuck it into Google. And some of the things that came back were, sorry, there's a lot of bugs. Convenience. So obviously that comes back to working in your local groups or local area, or creating a convenient experience where, I don't know, depending on what your customers might think is convenient. I find it like WhatsApp is very convenient. I like it when people just WhatsApp me. I don't have to go to my computer. I mean, it's obviously my convenience. But you know what I mean? Like, my phone is with me all the time. I use WhatsApp a lot. So if people order through WhatsApp, that's I think quite convenient for them. Customer service was one of the other things that they mentioned. So having good service, and also I think that probably falls under like so like let's say you are making a birthday cake for a kid, and they're turning 5, and you know they're turning 5, and then you put in 5 little candles that match with the cake. Well, the candles are not really in. 5 sparklers, let's say, so that we don't blow on our cakes with COVID or whatever. But you know, like, so adding little touches like that, or sending a birthday card, or just writing a special note, or whatever it is, doing those things, it probably falls under customer service. But those little touches, people are really quite taken with that kind of thing. I don't know, I do a lot of online ordering, and I've been trying to order from smaller businesses where I can, because I want to kind of practice what I preach. And the ones that come with a little letter that say, thank you for supporting my business, blah, blah, I'm always so touched when I get that. I feel like that is good customer service. And obviously also under customer service is getting back to people quickly, and, you know, working in a professional manner and all of that stuff. I'm sure we all know all of that. So I don't know, does anyone have anything they want to say about how they have marketed themselves, or what's worked for them? Or no, everyone's feeling shy. I'm gonna click to the next one. Okay, then the next thing that you'll need to do is find your price point. Okay, so that means, oh la la, where am I going? That means deciding deciding what you're going to sell your items for. Okay, so the first step to finding your price point is to know your customers. So what is important to your customers? Is it important to have a value for money cake, like maximum servings for minimum cost? Is it important for your customers to have something that's fully like Instagrammable and like just too cute for words that they're never even going to cut it because it's so cute? Is it important for your customers to have stone ground flour and free range eggs and butter made by cows that are massaged in the field, you know, whatever, or whatever that what is it, that lure pack? What are they doing there? But you know what I mean? So what is important to your customers? And the only way to know that is to ask your customers, to speak to people that are potential clients or existing clients and ask them in a kind of, you know, friendly way, what do you find important? And sometimes you don't even have to ask them. Sometimes you already know. And this will help you to make decisions about what you are doing with your cakes. So I've written about qualities and cost of ingredients, level of decorations, etc. So if you're going to work your costings out on your food cost, if you're using the low pack butter, which is like 100 Rand for a 500 Rand block, whatever, let's say, or like expensive Belgian chocolate, which is like, I don't know how many rands per kilogram. If your customers are not interested in that, they're not going to pay the price for that. They don't value that. They don't think that's important. They're not going to think it's important to value that price that you're going to come up with at the end. They're going to say, why the hell are you so expensive? So some people will phone me up and they say, I only want Belgian chocolate. And then I say, great. I just want to make you aware that it does add quite a bit to the cost. Here is the cost. If you want me to send you a costing with, or a price with a slightly cheaper version, let me know. So that's the kind of thing. And again, you only know that if you know who your customers are, or you know who you want your customers to be. Another thing to do is to check out the competition. So I don't really suggest you start spying on your neighbors or pretending to be customers. That's just very underhanded. But I think most people in the group would be more than happy to say what they have charged for things. I know I am happy to say that, you know, but again, I can't tell you what to charge. I can tell you what I would charge, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of a subtle difference there maybe between what I would charge and what you would charge. You have to make that decision for yourself based on what you already know about your business, okay? And then this is another thing I found online is value versus the perception of value. So it can be great value for money. You could be selling them a cake like 100 servings for 500 Rand. It's 5 Rand per slice. It's so cheap. But unless they perceive it as being valuable, they're not going to find value in it. And it comes back to that video of the man talking about Vusi Tembakwaya, I think it was. He was talking about the lady with that does the makeup, and he says, wow, you know, if you want your boyfriend, your ex-boyfriend to just think that you are the hottest thing ever, you need me to do it, because somebody who does it cheaper ain't gonna do it so pretty. Something along those lines. So it's by selling yourself as being valuable. And the only way, this is something I think that a lot, especially women, undermine themselves at this stage, is that they themselves don't think they are valuable. Which is why I'm here to say you are valuable and what you're doing is valuable. And if they don't want it at that price, that's okay. I know Vusi Tembakwaya would say don't turn them away, but I would say rather don't undersell yourself. You know, use these skills that you're learning here, like selling, or from him, he's the master of it. I wouldn't be able to say no to him, of sort of selling yourself as being valuable rather than just being a price. Please never work at a loss. So even if you're working for your friends and family, please at least charge them the cost of the ingredients and your basic overheads. It is, you can't, I see it all the time. People are like, oh, I'm doing a magazine thing. Please can you supply a cake? I'll give you lots of exposure. I don't really care how much exposure you give me. I still have to buy those ingredients. So I would say always at least cover your costs. Offer a variety of options. So this comes back to knowing your customers and finding your, like, niche market. So if your customer comes to you and says, I need a birthday cake for my kid, but I only have 400 Rand to spend, and there's 20 kids, then offer her like a tray cake with maybe a print on it. So she's getting what she wants at the price that she can afford. I say she could, I mean, maybe it's dad, I guess. Let's not be sexist here. Or, you know, so have a range of options. So you're not only offering this kind of high-end cake that nobody can afford, that you're offering something that covers everybody, maybe not everybody's budget, but so you can say, well, this is an expensive option, especially when they'll sometimes come with a rather unreasonable idea. It's like, got like 10 figurines on it and whatever. And it's like, well, you know, that's going to cost you like 1,000 Rand. And they're like, oh my God, what? But actually the kid will be quite happy to have a print with Spider-Man on it. And, you know, maybe mom is happy with it too. You know, they don't always know how much things cost. So without like frightening them away, just, you know, say, well, figurines add this much per figurine. So maybe you want to think about just having fewer figurines, or I can offer you this print at this price, or whatever it is, you know. And by offering those options, you will hopefully not be losing any customers. So your customers you'll sell them something, even if it's not what they originally thought they were going to get, if that makes sense. And what you really want, the first prize for everyone, is everyone goes away happy. So the lady with her 10 figurines is like, oh gosh, I didn't realize its figurines were so expensive. But now that I know, look, I've got this great cake with a print on it, or whatever it is. Okay. Then I don't feel like I can talk about any of this without talking about complaints. It's always the thing that comes, it's always the problem. So difficult customers, if you see them coming before, you will see them, you'll know them. Just get rid of them. Just give them a really high price and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I booked that weekend. I just can't quite help you there. But you'll know them you'll know what I mean. And they'll be asking for 100 quotes, and they'll be already moaning before you've even started. Just don't take them on. It's not worth it. But if there is a legitimate complaint, like let's assume something has legitimately gone wrong. So you've put salt instead of sugar, or something's gone wrong. The first thing you want to do is deal with it straight away, and just be upfront and take responsibility. There's nothing worse than someone saying, oh gosh, you know, I've got this girl working for me and she's really messed this up. You know, and like the customer also doesn't want to be sitting there going, oh my God, is that this little lackey going to be fired because I complain? You know, just take it on the chin, take the blame. You are the boss of your business. So even if someone else messed it up, you were the one, it's your name on the door. So you've got to take the blame. Obviously take responsibility and then apologize. I'm so sorry this happened. What can I do to make it up to you? You can say something like that, or you can offer options. Say, I could refund you, or I could offer you another cake, or whatever it is. But my advice is, if possible, create an opportunity to make a loyal customer. So what I mean by that is, instead of just giving them a refund and getting rid of them and going, oh my God, I just can't cope, I can't believe I messed this up so badly, just go away, here's the money. Rather say to them, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm not sure what happened there, but I would really like a chance to make it up to you. Can I offer you a free cake for your next party? Whatever. And then obviously make sure that it is freaking awesome, because now your reputation's on the line there. And then hopefully, so, what you want people to say is, oh, I went to Julie, but there was a bit of a problem. The cake was a bit funny, but she was so nice and she made such a beautiful cake to make up for it. And then you get a loyal customer out of a bad experience, rather than having someone going onto your Facebook page and saying, 1 star, she's terrible, the cake was disgusting, or whatever. You want to deal with it. You don't want people bad mouthing you elsewhere, or giving bad reviews, or actually even just not returning. What you really want is return customers. So that's why I say here, seek feedback. So as hard as it is, especially to take criticism, I don't think anybody wants to take criticism. I would ask my customers, if you have the energy, sorry, these little muggies are driving me nuts, to ask them after the fact, did you enjoy your cake? How was it? You know, and get that feedback. If they say, I loved it, but you know, it was quite sweet. It was too much icing. Then you know, and you'll know for future with that customer that they don't like a lot of icing. And you can make a note of that. And then the next time when you make a cake for them, you'd be like, I know you're not so keen on this super sweet icing. So what if we did a cream cheese icing or whatever, whatever it is, you know. So that's how you get these loyal customers that will keep returning to you. And then they'll know that you know how they like it, you know. Okay. So then back to this costing tool. Here it is. Here's the twist in the tail. This is how you do an upsell. So I made this little costing tool, which you can purchase for 100 Rand. But if you want to watch a little video on how it works, I've got them on my YouTube channel. It basically just allows you to work out the cost of the ingredients, and then it has a section where you can update the costs. So if you work out the cost of your, I don't know, your butter cake, and then the cost of flour changes, you update it in the kind of, if there's one sheet where you update the cost of the flour, and then all your ingredients, all the recipes that have flour in them in the other part of the sheet will be updated. I'm not that good an upseller, so let's move on. So these are some, I don't know, they're all videos. I'm not going to play them. They're all videos that I made that are on my little YouTube channel. That you obviously cost nothing to watch these. That tell you about how to convert your units, it goes in depth into what I've just told you about working out how to calculate and how to work out your selling price. They're probably about 30 minutes each. It's just my boring voice, really. But I'll send you the links to those, especially if you want to go back and really like drill down on some of the details of what I've kind of glossed over a bit today. And yes, and then thank you for attending. And obviously I think all of you are in this WhatsApp group. You can post your questions there. Everyone is so helpful there. There's so many people that are just like super keen to share their knowledge. It's great, especially since you know, I'm not always on the group. So chat, here we go. Somebody chatting, having problems with connection. So I've now lost my train of thought. Yes, if you prefer to just WhatsApp me directly, you're welcome to do that. That's my number. Are there any questions or thoughts? I don't even know, what time is it? Let me just think. Sorry. Oh, yeah, wow, I haven't done for quite a while. You'd think I like the sound of my own voice. I'm going to, how do I get out of here? There we go. Stop sharing. So yeah, if anyone has anything that they want to say or no, ask. Hi.
Hi, Lee. You know, one of the things that I see it in the costing. Thank you for the information. Is about the value of your time that it takes. But I see in the costing, you're saying it should be a third of that.
I think for me that is fine if it is not something that is taking a lot of time. So if you've just baked the cake, that's fine. I feel like that does not account for the time and also the kind of knowledge and skill that goes into specialized decorations. So what I mean by that is sugar flowers, figurines, fondant work, all of that stuff. I don't think so. Let's say you're using a kilogram of fondant on your cake at 60 Rand. I don't think it's enough to just say, oh, well, I'm going to add 180 Rand for that, because there's quite a bit of time and skill that goes into, okay, obviously covering the cake, let's say with fondant, but also if you're making a bow or you're making, whatever, something, even if it's just something that's molded, you know, all of that, it takes time. So for that, I would add that on as an additional cost, because I think it is specialized and it's not just part of the ingredient cost anymore. So let's say, for instance, you were to go down to the shop and you were to buy a molded item. and you were to pay, or like little sugar flowers, that's a good example. They're like R2 each, those little blossoms. So you buy a box of them for 20 Rand. Even if you yourself make them, I would still add my 20 Rand or whatever it is for those flowers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and I can't stress this enough, don't undervalue yourselves. You know, cake decorating is hard work. You're not going to become a millionaire doing cake decorating. So at least make a comfortable living, a business out of it, you know. And again, that's why I say don't work for free. It's you know, if we're running a business, we're trying to earn a living. We're not trying to fleece anyone or trick anyone, or it's not like that. Although some people behave like it is, it really isn't. And I don't think being the cheapest is necessarily the best either. So it comes down to that perceived value. So if you're the cheapest one on the market, people will perceive you as being cheap and nasty, maybe. Because what I do is very custom. I don't have any like standard cakes. Everything is custom made. Everything I quote for individually. Everything is, you know, different for every person. So I always say to them, because I find it hard not to just blurt out the price, I always say to them, hear what they have to say, and then I say, great, I'll get back to you with a quote. Because if I just say a price, and I haven't actually worked it out, I usually say a price that's way cheaper than it should be. And I only realize that when I sit down and work out, oh gosh, but I actually need this and this and this and this, and this decoration is going to take some time. So just, you know, unless you have a specific like a catalog or a range of things that you always make, those you can have your prices and advertise them. But if it's custom, I think just say, I'll get back to you with a quote. I don't know where I was going with that. I've lost my train of thought of it. Yeah. Anyone else? No. I was going to say something else, but I've lost my train of thought. Something about that. Hi.
Hi. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was like good, especially for the costing part. Would you say it's a good idea, like when doing the costing, to have like different pricing for the cake sizes? Because I mean,
Yes.
the bigger it is, the bigger it's the costing is going to be.
Yes, for sure. So that's why I would suggest a system where you work out how many portions you'll get out of it. So let's say, let's say I have a recipe for a vanilla cake, and it makes a 23 centimeter cake, which is like a normal cake size. I don't know if you can see in the picture. It's not very good. But it's only about that tall. So sometimes people will then want, which is very much the trend now, is to have these kind of slightly narrower cakes, but much taller. So I'm still using the same recipe, the same quantity. I'm now just dividing it between two small round tins, small ones, and it's sort of twice the height, or maybe even more actually. So technically the number of servings is the same, because I've used the same amount of cake batter, but obviously it's much more difficult to cut a tall, thin cake into as many servings, which is why like having a big wide tray cake is the easiest, because you just cut squares or whatever. So that's why I think you need to at least have an estimate of how many servings you're going to get out of the cake. So, or a range. So for a 23, or so let's say for that 23 wide one batch one, I would get, I don't know, maybe 15 servings out of it, or say 12 to 15 maybe. I don't know. There are quite a few tables of this. I'll see if I can find them. And then I just use that same costing, and I say, okay, this is how I'm going to use the same batch of cake to make this tall one. Or it's just a small cake. I'm only going to use half the batch. Then obviously I would just use half of the costing. And I would tell the people, look, this is going to serve 8 people or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, it does. Thank you.
And obviously, if you're having tiered cakes, you're going to have sort of standard sizes that you're going to use. So I think it probably would serve you to work out the costing for each size, or how many batches of batter you're going to use. So let's say you're using 2 batches for the bottom one for the middle, and half for the top or whatever. So you know you're going to use 2.5 times to fill those up, and then have a rough guideline of how many servings that is.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like something else is on the back of my mind, but I can't think what it was. If I think of it, I'll put it on the group. Cool. And you're always welcome to ask questions, either in the group or directly to me. As I say, I'm all about getting people's businesses going and trying to help them make a successful business, because it's one thing to be like, oh, I'm in business, but it's another thing to say, actually, my business is working for me, and I'm not just staying up till like 2 a.m. every Friday night and crying myself to sleep because I've made no money on that time that I spent doing it. Yeah. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So I am really into butter icing cakes at the moment. And the reason for that is you can get quite a nice look, and the customer doesn't really know the difference between a cute butter icing cake and a fondant cake. I'm really over fondant, because for a fondant cake, you would need to cover it with butter icing or something before you put the fondant over it. So you have butter icing and fondant in your ingredient cost. Plus the time it takes to cover it nicely with the fondant is a bit of time. And then obviously whatever decorations. So for a butter icing cake, if you can get a reasonably nice finish on it, and I mean these days with those scrapers, and there's so many cute things that are happening now with butter icing. So I could probably charge the same as I would for a fondant cake, but the amount of work is probably half, and the cost of the ingredients is less because I don't have to add fondant into that cost as well. Obviously, you're going to use more butter icing, but like for me to pipe a border or something, it probably takes me like 10 minutes. To get an equivalent look with fondant, it takes me like an hour. So for me, I'm pushing these butter icing cakes because the profit margin on that is much bigger. So that comes back to kind of what Renee was saying, is having just the cost times 3 is fine until there's a lot of labor intensive decorations. Then it falls down, it doesn't work anymore. So that's why I would say, when I add in, oh, I'm going to cover the cake with fondant, I add like $100 for that activity. If it's a rainbow cake with the rainbow layers, I add $50 for that, because I'm going to have to wash up 7 bowls. That's a lot of bowls, or it's the same with rainbow icing. You're going to have to mix a different color, and you're going to need a bag for each color. And it's a lot more work than just having one color, and those kind of things. That also knowing to add for that comes with experience. After a few times you've done a rainbow cake and you're like, damn, this is hard. You're going to be like, cool, man, I'm going to add extra for that. But, those are the kind of things. And there are ways to also guide your customers towards the things that are going to be maybe better value for them and better value for you. So, they're getting a great cake that they love, but it's less work for you. I don't know. That's my take on that. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Any questions? Any more questions? Okay. I'm going to end this video. I will post the link to this recording, and I will figure out in the morning how to send the slides, and I will send it all to the group. Cool. Awesome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. How do I end this thing?